Hi, Fred. How are you?
That's okay. Hey, they already harassed me. You missed it. You want to be here to, see them harass me?
Actually, by the way, the seat that you're the chair, that's what the governor sat
Oh, gee, thanks.
there.
Jim, you ready?
I'm ready.
Work session June 15th. First topic on the agenda is objectives and timing of utility rate and impact fee studies.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. The 2020 annual work plan included updates that are needed to several of our utility rates and impact fees. So Jackie and I have been kind of strategizing about how to get those done and kind of get into the meat of those rates. And just as a reminder, on the impact fee side, we have our parks and recreation facilities and trails, otherwise parks impact fee. We have transportation to pay for new arterials and collectors. And then we have a police impact fee that also is intended to pay for the growth of our police department and other capital related to that. On the utility rates, as I think you know, fee and a storm drainage fee. And so we looked at all of those and said which ones, are most ripe. I think there was a comment from council at the last meeting that we really need to be, transparent and have a conversation about optimizing or maximizing the various opportunities and things that we do, talk about timing and talk about why do it now versus later and all those things. So part of tonight's work session is for that. But essentially, we looked at each of the fees that we had talked about, and a couple of them are particularly ripe for now, and the others we feel will probably be better money spent on the impact fee studies if we wait until we get through more of the master planning process and some of those, the utility feasibility study that we're potentially partnering with Central Weld and getting utilities south of the river, all those things. So tonight we wanted to check in with you on which are most important, which are most timely, and just get your direction to proceed with those and your direction to probably, move forward on the others at a time when our capital plans are more solid for the future, which is really the meat of what those rate studies and impact fees are about. So we are recommending, and we hope you agree, that wastewater and police impact fees can't wait. You see our police chief raising the roof over there because of the large capital needs that are fairly well defined and that we know we're going to need. And really just the need to get those rates in place for the development that we know is coming. So with that, I would ask our finance director, Jackie Trout, to give an overview of those rate studies. It's important we check in with you on the objectives and what we're going to ask a consultant to do specifically in those plans, what our goals are, and that we have your feedback or any thoughts that you have about what to include in those studies. Jackie, if you could.
Absolutely. Good evening. So as Jim mentioned, police impact fee is one of the most, we feel, ripe. I think that's a great word for it. Something that we don't want to miss opportunity as we're looking at what those service level needs are for police service, what those capacity needs are, and ultimately the new police facility. What we would anticipate doing then is going back to the group that did the last master plan for our impact fees. That group is Tischler Bice. The contact there is Carson Bice, who's one of the best in the area, definitely a subject matter expert. When it comes to impact fees, it can really help having development pay their fair share, that we're really looking at those cost alternatives. There's a number of models that are able to be used to set impact fees. So we'll have somebody come to us or work with us to really give us those alternatives that council can make decisions based on. A lot of the work for the impact fee updates really does go back to land use development plans so that those impact fees really do match what we anticipate for the future of our community. Obviously, the capital cost for the new police facility will be a big one in there, and looking at what is the appropriate split for current residents and development to pay their fair share on that. So as Jim mentioned, this is one that will be the most timely in terms of impact fees to look at now. In addition to this work, not only would there be a fee recommendation at the end of this, but also cash flow analysis and kind of some help as we continue to develop long-range plans for these fees and the funds that it in. So those are the police impact fees. And then on the utility rate side, wastewater, as Jim mentioned, is the rate that we're recommending to proceed with now. We did look at the storm drainage rate in 2019, did implement the current structure that we have today. I have talked with our IT department and our utility billing to continue to have the conversation of what we need to do on our end to further impervious surface data, to have that level of information for us to further that storm drainage rate. More specifically, we are at a point where we don't have the data we need to make that jump. From conversations with a few other communities, we're not trailing. There are some communities that have done the impervious surface. It's very detailed. Everybody's bill is different. It's very complicated to manage from a staff perspective. Obviously, some efficiencies there in that rate structure too. It does seem like if development's coming and it's to wait until some of these large subdivisions come online, we're able to do a new flyover, get multiple levels of data that would help not only for this utility piece, but also utility identification overall in the city. It would help with planning and development as they look forward to. So there's lots of levels of data with that the city could really utilize. But the question will be, when is the right time to invest to get that level of data? So we're recommending that we keep storm drainage structure the way that it is for now. And then the other utility that we're not talking about specifically or recommending to proceed is water. And we do have a number of those studies underway: feasibility study, the water demand analysis, and then additional water treatment option discussions. All those things would really aid in the development of an updated water utility master plan once we have those answers solidified as well. So wastewater is the one that feels like we have the known inputs and the information we need to proceed with this. There are a number of objectives that we would look at in this rate study that would model pretty closely to how we've done the storm rates in 2019. It would help develop a 10-year financial plan for the wastewater fund, make sure that the rates that we're charging users are equitable for the residential classes, for the commercial classes, and come back with a structure that seems to meet the need of council and of that service for those various groups. It would also look at long-term capital costs, making sure that we have sustainable funding for capital going forward. It would look at everything from our reserve levels, debt levels, and then ultimately that rate structure. So we've talked about whether a separate multifamily category is right, how we can have that best structured to be equitable for our users. So that would be a big one of that. And the consultants that I've spoken with on this one is needs forecasting for us, a very, very knowledgeable and wastewater group called FCS. Contact there is Jason Mum. He's been a great partner for us as we're doing some long-term sustainability of our utilities. So I think we have the right people that are able to help us with these plans. They are both able and willing to work as quickly as we would like to get this done. Ideally, the plan then would be for us to have any kind of rate recommendations for wastewater through Water and Sewer Board, ultimately approved by council, so that we could have them approved and ready to be implemented January 1.
I would just conclude by underscoring, or the last point on the slide, just that, when you do these rate studies, now is when you kind of ask the consultant to help you if you were to have a different structure for your rates. And certainly they would base the study first on our current rate model, capital, with our updated capital plans. But then we're also asking them to look at what if we had a multifamily tier. I know I've heard several comments from residents about that, or commercial or multifamily property owners and developers. Many communities do have a rate classification for multifamily properties, apartments. The other thing we would like to ask them about, some communities, including Greeley, has a wastewater rate model that pretty closely mirrors the water service charge model, with the idea that your wastewater demand on the system is probably similar to the water demand on the system. And this could potentially address some of what we've heard from residents with, one or two people in their household who pay larger households pay. And, I've heard it, perhaps you have too, just that it would feel more fair perhaps if there was some reflection of household size in the rate. And right now we just have that single residential category. So that's another thing we would ask them to do and bring back to us. And I just want to make sure that those are both interesting to council to have those answers. We certainly don't know, whenever you do that, you do see some unintended, impacts on existing rate classes and the way that we do it now. But those would all be brought back to council for consideration. But those are probably the two model tweaks that we would study. That concludes our remarks.
So I'm glad impact fee and having newer development help pay for that as well. But one of the things that I also think we need to do is, I know it's going to take a while after we get that recommendation and that once that's implemented, to build up that necessary money to build a new facility. I think that the police department's need for a new facility is now, not maybe 5-7 years down the line. So I think we also have to look at another way to generate revenue or get that money to start building that facility within, I would say, the next couple of years. And then continue to have future development, continue to sustain that and help, expand it and develop the police station in the future. I also do like the idea of maybe looking at a multifamily tier as well. I think that would be a great impact as well. And also I think Councilmember Spear and I think Neil as well talked about, having households that have more people pay more and looking at that way for help system development fees and everything. I think that would be a great idea as well. There's no reason why a family of 2 or even 4 should be paying the same rate as somebody that has 9-10 people living in a house. I don't think that's fair. Stuff going in, stuff going out. It should be adjusted based on the household as well. So, but I think the police needs are sooner rather than later. And the other stuff, I agree with what you guys were talking about as well. So.
I think with the police thing, though, tell me if I'm wrong, the way we go out and get a loan for the police department is to show what the rates would be on people. So I think we can start the police department sooner by showing them what the rates would be. So
that's an upcoming work session soon. This is just to bring you, again, that question of, do we go to the voters about using the food tax for that purpose? That would enable us to have both that source of funding plus the new residents' impact fees to help pay off debt, which would, to have both would be great.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Fred, did you have something?
Oh, well, no, I just brought that in with me, the food tax.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, I agree with what Councilman. I just kind of question though, and this is something that we would have to figure out, is how we would be able to think how many people are in the household. That's a bigger challenge. And on the flip side, or in the same kind of realm of that, I think a challenge would be too, is I know that the current wastewater treatment rates were increased to pay for the current wastewater treatment plant. And I would hate to see us having to these same for that to pay for a new one too, or an addition. So it's kind of study, I think, that is ahead of us. on figuring these things out, and I would like to see a lot of options on that. I am for the police.
Putting these ones first. I agree with Laura. I want to see the numbers when they come in on the different amount of people in a house, but then it gets tricky. I have 4 people in my house, but 2 of them can't use a toilet. So,
Okay, they will.
but right now they don't, so I'm paying for 4 people. I don't know, it's tricky. I
Well,
want to
that's-
get numbers on that.
That's why the communities who've tried to do that typically use water consumption
That's what I was
as the
saying,
proxy
they use a
for
tier,
people.
yeah.
It's not people directly, but it's the
Right.
water consumption that they use.
Right.
Like you said, stuff in stuff.
Probably have, yeah, like we have the tier system.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do. And
Yeah.
a lot of communities still have that base rate plus the tier. So I was told it's actually kind of rare just to have a consumption-based rate for wastewater too. So he had lots of great ideas on that and lots of good options.
Bringing
So
back options.
And
for us.
those are the options that we'd like to see, I think.
Yeah.
we're in line and have the right direction then to move forward. with that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Next item is 4th of July fireworks. We'll hear from Jim, and I'm assuming Chief Brantley.
I'll tap dance till the chief arrives, but I know they've been busy. Certainly, this is the annual at the time where we usually have an update on fireworks enforcement plans. I know that since we had some council direction a couple of weeks ago to get that going as soon as possible, I've seen more of our social media. I know we have you. I'll let the chief